If you've ever been in a relationship before, you know that people don't always understand what it is that they want. So in this video, we're going to help you understand your players better than they might even understand themselves.
Hey everybody, welcome back to J&J Tabletop. I'm Josh. With me as always is Jake. And before we really get into things, I'd like to take a moment to speak about gift giving. Some of the best gifts that I've ever received and some of the best gifts that I've ever given, really all of them, were gifts that I didn't ask for and that the person I was giving a gift to didn't ask for. There's a lot of reasons why that makes it better, right? It means you were listening, you're picking up on either things that they've said in passing, or maybe you're noticing that there's a need and just think something might be helpful or not. You've seen the way they enjoy something, and I think that means something to someone. And I think that directly relates to this video and why, it might not always be the best or only option to ask players what they want. The most obvious reason is sometimes they don't know what they want, right, Jake?
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of funny that we're making a video like this because how many times in our videos we were like, talk to your players, ask them questions. And while that should be your baseline response and go-to move, there is value in understanding why listening and paying attention to someone else is important. You said it before, Josh, the real gift really is that I see you. I think another one, it's a more diabolical one, and I think that's the Dungeon Master meme. But if you know the kinds of things they cherish, you as a dungeon master know how to better create tension because you can threaten that. Maybe they have certain motivations or abilities they have, and if that feels like that's in danger, that can create tension and can create some really fun moments in the game. Really, if you think about it, though, at the end of the day, this boils down to I want to get the most out of my games, right? That's why we do what we do at J&J Tabletop. But you're trying to just design adventures and games that your players will cherish. And the very first thing, like when we talk about communicating with your players, the most important thing you should be doing there is listening.
Feels like that goes without saying, right? Like that's part of communicating. When we say talk to your players, listen to the players, listen to the things they say in passing. Gaming regular video games with you and Michael, I've heard comments like, I feel like the story just hasn't moved forward a little bit. Or I feel like we've been stuck on this thing for a while. There's a lot of reasons why that might be, but the one that comes to mind is the story is almost always moving forward, right? If my players are saying they don't feel like it's moving forward, that tells me that I might need to do a better job of communicating what's actually happening, or if there's a big goal that's going to take forever to finish, create smaller goals so it feels like they're checking things off a list. Jake has said multiple times, I haven't hit something in a while. I haven't had a combat in a while. And Jake's always a slut for a good combat, right? But this tells me that as a DM, I need to be aware of how many sessions it's been since we've had combat, and try to make sure that there's more coming soon. And even if I know that we're going to do another session without combat, I'm going to try to headline that there is a combat coming because I know that's something that he cares about. Magic items is another easy one. I have heard Jake say, I hate counting arrows and keeping track of counting arrows. One time Izzy talked about like, there's not a lot of ice spells that I have access to or whatever. I had to choose, she liked the idea of being like an ice mage. And Evan, I remember he had complaints about like how many key points monks had access to. So what did I do? Jake has a bow that he doesn't have to count his arrows anymore. It just makes ammunition. And Izzy got a I forgot the name of the staff, but it's like an ice staff.
Staff of Winter?
Something like that. That sounds right. Yeah. And then Evan's magic item, it gives him extra 1 or 2 key points, something like that. Not anything crazy, but it's helpful. So just pay attention to what your players are saying and make adjustments based off of what they're saying, right? Like that seems pretty straightforward, right, Jake?
Definitely. You should always be evaluating what's going on in your games, whether that's what the players are saying or, maybe you're paying attention to what kind of character they made in general. I mean, we might see with our eyes and not with our hands, but we also can listen with our eyes as well as our ears. You look at somebody who took the time to power game out a really cool build, and they made a character that's designed to be awesome at combat. Well, they probably want combats often, and they probably would like to have challenging and interesting combats that will test those things that they put in their character. They're telling you by taking those feats, by taking that class or multi-class, those spells, it doesn't matter. This is what will be fun for them. And we have videos on how you can improve your combat encounters, so we'll probably have a card pop up and probably one at the end too that you should watch to help do that. But it's not like combat's the only kind of way you could test them. I mean, maybe they built a skill monkey. Maybe they're a rogue and then they multi-classed into being a bard. They take every utility spell in the game. So there's a reason for that. They probably are looking for a way to test them. They want to find puzzles and like interesting situations that they find themselves in to be able to use the things that they took for their character. They take it because they envision using it. Social mastery, if you're just going to kind of hit all three pillars, you're going to have a lot of overlap with skill driven, but with the social skills. But they're probably telling you that they're looking for some cool NPCs to role play with. They're meaningful connections and stakes to have when it comes to Indy had great timing on that. He's a cool NPC when it comes to J&J Tabletop. But have a dog in your game. That's going to be one of those things that they might really cherish, and all of a sudden then have a reason to go on an adventure to protect a dog or find a cure for something that's afflicting a village or something like that. Like, the stakes, the story, that's the driving force.
And that works with skill driven too. It might not be the first thing that comes to mind, but if they chose animal handling, if they have proficiency or double proficiency in animal handling, give them opportunities to flex that. Let them, if they chose speak with animals, add an animal here or there that's in an interesting place. It's not like they're gonna walk up to every squirrel or deer they come across in the forest and talk to them. If they do, your player's kind of a jerk. But throw animals in an interesting place. Put a rat in a dungeon that doesn't run away when you walk up to it. They're going to engage with it and have something planned.
And speaking of something to engage with, I mean, that's really the next thing that you should be paying attention to. Everybody's going to have different things that get them excited. And if you're just paying attention to what gets them excited, you're going to have a really good idea of how to excite them. I mean, that just makes sense, right, Josh?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What immediately comes to mind for me is the first puzzle I gave you guys in Ancient Relics and Hook Your Religions. I think it was like a riddle that had like a physical thing too, where you had to like light a candle or something along those lines. And I remember how excited Evan got being able to do that. And, that told me Evan loves puzzles, and I'm going to do what I think is the hardest thing to do in Dungeons and Dragons, and that's create interesting puzzles that aren't going to take forever for players to solve. Or who am I kidding? I mean, even making a puzzle in general is not always the easiest thing. But Michael seems to get excited, and I see the gears turning for him anytime there's some sort of moral gray area or moral quandary, or like, do I save this person or do I save this person? He seems to like hard choices. So throwing that kind of stuff in there occasionally, that's fun for me too. I love seeing how players engage with that kind of stuff. And Jake, there's obviously a lot of conversations we've had on the side too, but Jake loves a slow burn. When there's a mystery that you can just throw breadcrumbs on for, I don't know, tens, dozens of sessions or anything like that. Yeah. We just had something kind of come to fruition that there were whispers about for a while, and just little things that take a while to play out and give him time to say, I have my theories of what I think this is. I know that's something that you like.
I do. And if I may, Josh, I feel like your motivations tend to center around being challenged in some way. I know you like your combats and things like that, but also, every character you've made does tend to like to be protective and to find, if I present interesting choices in combat that makes you either choose between ending a threat or saving somebody, I feel like you're like, oh, okay. is the best way to save that person ending the threat. Like, I think you really do enjoy, because you do put together great builds. If you haven't watched our Dragon of Icefire Peak playthrough, good lord, watch that. It's the only character I've ever felt like I have to adjust things for.
After you have gone through all of this, you've noticed these things, you have kind of picked up on what you think your players care about. I think this is a good point to actually communicate that to them. You know, if I just keep feeding Jake interesting combats or Michael moral quandaries or whatever, I think there is a point where you could say, "Hey, I've noticed that you seem to get really excited when I do X, Y, and Z. Tell me more about that. Like, is that something you like? What do you like about this?" And being able to give that more pointed question, I think you'll get way better answers and results than in your session 0 of like, what kind of game do you like? You know, it's still good to ask that question,
Yeah.
but I think you're going to get a better answer after you've already done some work yourself.
Especially if the player's newer and they're not entirely sure yet. They're still figuring out what kinds of things they like in the game. But I think I would like to know what your players enjoy engaging with, not only because I want ideas for when I run games, but because I think it's just a good question to ask ourselves as dungeon masters. So let us know in the comment section. And also, we've got some other videos that are on screen now that I think you would enjoy. So I would encourage you to click on them. And then, yeah, you should probably hit the like button too, because we like that. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody.